9:50 a.m. The Ticket.
All right, hour number 3 here, Prater in the ball game. Quick reminder, go to KTIK.com tomorrow at 9 a.m. Give us $25. We'll give you $50 to spend at Bonefish Grill. We'll have Mike Sanford joining the program this hour, Boise State former offensive coordinator and quarterback. He'll talk to us about the J train in 2014 and what the secret to his success was as the OC of that Fiesta Bowl winning Broncos roster. But first, Prater, let's get back to Ashton Jeanty a little bit. This whole segment, we've been working on this segment all week. Ashton Jeanty, Jay Ajayi, the season Jeanty is having in 2023, kind of comparing it to the season Jay Ajayi had in 2014.
Yeah, Jay Ajayi, 2014, by consensus, is the greatest running back season in Boise State history. Led the nation in touches with 397, led the nation with touchdowns with 32, led the nation with all-purpose yards, 2358. I believe all of those, well, I'm not sure if they're all still school records, but it was just absolutely dominant. The all-purpose yards was definitely a school record. Jay Ajayi was a beast in that 2014 season. Just a couple of quick little notes about that. It is the longest season in Boise State football history, 126 days. It started on August 28th. It ended on December 31st. A couple of other, the 06 and the 09 seasons went 124 days. The 02 season went 123 days. So 126 days, the longest season in Boise State history. And don't forget the first 20 days of this season, of which Jay Ajayi was the beast of a workhorse of a man that we'll never see again. They had to fly 8,000 miles in their first 20 days. They played at Atlanta. They came back to Boise. They had to fly to Connecticut. They came back to Boise, and then they had back-to-back road trips to Air Force and Nevada. It was an absolutely brutal start, which explains why Jay Ajayi, he was okay at the start of the season. In the middle of the season, he turned into a beast. Toward the end, he faded a little bit. I cannot wait to see how Ashton Jeanty plays out.
Yeah, I mean, Ashton Jeanty so far, we know the numbers. I'll go the total yardage numbers first. Ashton Jeanty, after 4 games, has 692 scrimmage yards, 8 touchdowns. Prater, after 4 games, Jay Ajayi, 698 and 7 touchdowns, 6 yards separates these two after 4 games.
Yeah, and Jay had much better rushing numbers than Ashton Jeanty did. Ashton Jeanty has better receiving numbers. Mm-hmm. Jay had also 30 more touches. Jay, as we're going to explain here in this little oral history, Jay did most of his work during a 7-game streak between the Nevada game and the Utah State game for 7 consecutive games. He was an absolute beast, and that's where he did his majority of his work. So Ashton Jeanty is coming up on that, and that's where he's going to have to shine in terms of keeping up with Jay Ajayi. Jay Ajayi had his most touches that season. In the second game of the season, he had 33 runs and 4 catches, 37 touches was the most he had that season.
Okay.
Ashton Jeanty's never had 30 touches in his entire career at Boise State. He's young. He's going to be here this year. He's going to be here next year. And so he's got plenty of time to take care of his business. But Jay Ajayi started off really strong in terms of touches. After that, they tried to manage it just a little bit better.
Both these players also come from military families. Ashton Jeanty, Jay Ajayi, they both kind of settled in Texas for high school. As Prater said, I don't know where you came up with this, but you found it. I mean, even their initials are reversed.
Well, I didn't have to find that. I could figure that out on my own.
AJJA. I wasn't thinking that, but yeah.
Neither was I, but it was an afterthought. And not only were they high schools in Texas, they both went to high schools in Frisco, Texas. They went to high school in the same, I think it was different high schools, but they went to completely different high schools, but in the same town. That's kind of cool. There's a lot here in terms of just the comparison, the body shape, the body style, the running ability to be able to catch, pass, protect, do all that stuff, the dreadlocks, the look. Jay was kind of a quiet guy early on in his career. Ashton Jeanty is very much a quiet guy in his career. Jay certainly got way more animated later on in his career, and certainly had a fun connection with the fans that we're still waiting for that to happen with Ashton, but he's out there running like a beast, and we hope that he can have a kind of season that Jay had in 2014.
All right, so where do we want to go after this? We've mentioned the first 4 games. Ashton Jeanty starts the 5th. Jay played 14 games in 2014. what needs to happen? Where does Ashton Jeanty need to be statistically to stay on this trajectory? And maybe Prater down the road this season, we get to November, we're getting into late October saying, hey, maybe Ashton Jeanty has a shot at this.
Yeah, and Jay's season started off really slow. That first game against Ole Miss, he wasn't even mentioned in the AP game story, but I wasn't going back and read. His name was never nowhere to be found.
Okay.
Then he comes back against Colorado State and ran for 219 yards. That's very impressive. Then they go to UConn, and he has another horrible game. So 2 of his first 3 games, he was really, really bad. And then he comes here for the Louisiana Lafayette game, kind of got on track. Then the Air Force game, he had decent numbers, but he lost 2 fumbles. Boise State starts the season 3-2.
Okay.
And Jay Ajayi at that point is just kind of an average running back. He didn't have any kind of buzz that the Ashton Jeanty is having right now in terms of those first 5 games. It really got off to a slow start. But then here comes the Nevada game. October 4th, it was in Reno. He ran for 116 yards in the second half. He had 3 touchdowns all in the second half. He finished with 152 yards. He also caught 3 passes for 18 yards. So it really kind of took off in that Nevada game. Then he comes home with back-to-back games against Fresno and BYU, and he's just a beast. The Fresno game, 158 yards, rushing, 37 yards, receiving, couple of touchdowns. His 54-yard run clinched the victory. It was a 10-point game. Late in the game, he went on a 54-yard run. And then the BYU game, that was unbelievable, featuring some NFL guys. Jamal Williams was on that team for BYU. Jamal Williams had 70 yards and a touchdown. Fred Warner, one of the best linebackers in all of the NFL right now, was in that game. He had an interception. And Jay Ajayi ran for 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he just continued to shine and dominate. And then came the San Diego State game, which I don't know if I want to bring up because that still brings nightmares to Boise State fans. Boise State won the game, but that was the game, guys, that you remember that ended at 11:40 at night, 9 degrees. The J train. Jay Ajayi played 2 home games in front of 25,000 people.
Yeah,
really bad.
What was the other one?
The other one was the Mountain West Championship game against Fresno State.
Okay. Yeah.
26,000 there, only 27,000 for that San Diego State game, which was brutal. 9 degrees. I'll never forget that night. It was absolutely unbelievable. BSU trailed 20-3 in the second quarter, and here comes Jay Ajayi with 134-yard rushing and 3 touchdowns and was just the hero of the day. Then he went to Wyoming and had another monster day. I mean, this dude must love the cold. He must love the workload. He went to Wyoming, and it was a game that ended at 11:50 at night, 35 degrees, 20-mile-an-hour winds, and he rushes for 110, catches 92 yards worth of passes, had a 73-yard pass that really kind of put Boise State in a great shape. He did that early on in the second or the third quarter, and with 1 minute to go in the third quarter, Boise State's up 35-7. Smart dude. He's done for the night.
Yeah. Okay, and let me ask you this then. Jay Ajayi that year, 2014, he had 397 touches of the ball, whether he caught it or he carried it. 397 in 14 games. Was there any irresponsibility from the coaching staff feeding this Jay Ajayi beast and maybe not saving him as much as they could for a future career in the NFL?
No, you don't save him. You try to win football games. You take the task at hand. I mean, that's the byproduct of this. And Boise State did a nice job. Harsin and Sanford did a nice job. And we'll talk to Sanford about this a little bit when he comes on right now. But the season finale, they only threw the ball to him once. That was against Utah State in a blowout. Then the Mountain West Championship game, they didn't throw to him once. Yeah. And then in the Fiesta Bowl against Arizona, they only threw to him 5 times for -1 yard. So in the last 3 games, he only had 6 catches as a pass catcher. So I think that they really tried to protect his legs at that point. He was still running well. He ran 229 yards and 5 touchdowns, career high type stuff in that Utah State finale. Grant Hedrick, his quarterback, said, my favorite part of football right now is watching Jay Ajayi run.
Isn't that funny, man? I love Niner, man. Yeah, Grant Hedrick, he had the best seat in the house for maybe the best running back season in the history of a program that has had really good running backs have really good seasons.
Brian Harsin obviously was the head coach, and I did notice one kind of funny quote, and we did ask Brian to join us for today's show, and he politely declined. But at that Wyoming game, that cold, that brutal game, 20-mile-an-hour wind, 30-degree weather, where Jay was just a beast. Harsin after the game said, And this really sums up Jay Ajayi's season and really connects the dots to Ashton Jeanty's season. Harsin in the postgame locker room on Jay Ajayi said, he looked fast and he hit hard.
That's what Harsin said.
That's all you really need to say. He looked fast and he hits hard. That's kind of Jay Ajayi in a nutshell right there.
I like it, man. Things I was keeping track of, and I went home, I did the homework last night like Prater did on this thing, just really analyzing and looking at the numbers and crunching Ashton Jeanty, what he's done so far this year, and Jay Ajayi in that spectacular 2014. And like I said earlier, the first 4 games were separated. Jay Ajayi averaged 174 yards. Ashton Jeanty has averaged 173. That's how close they've been in yardage after the first 4 games. Now, if Jay Ajayi's next 4, I'll tell you, where he went, he dipped a little bit in his next 4. Basically, Ashton Jeanty fans, for him to keep this pace, the next 4 games, which are at Memphis, San Jose, at Colorado State, and Wyoming, he will have to average, Ashton Jeanty, 157 yards per game over the next 4, and he'll still be on that Ajayi pace, Prater. But it's crazy. Ajayi's season, as they got into mid-October until like mid-November, he took it to another level. Yeah. I don't know, as much as I love Jeanty, Prater, I don't know if he can have this Jay Ajayi 2014 year. I don't know if he can keep this up, man.
I don't know if he can either, but I think he's got a chance. I'm not sure if I expect George Alani to come back anytime soon, if at all, and I'm not sure when and if he does come back, how productive he's going to be, how much they're going to use him. They're not going to lean on Breezy Dubar. Brian Harsin was a workhorse of a coach.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure Andy Avalos and Bush Hamden are. We're going to see how that plays out here over the next month. But Brian Harsin loved the workhorse running back, as do I. I think it's a good idea. When you have Jay Ajayi, take advantage of him. The next year, when you have the next 2 years, when you have Jeremy McNichols, take advantage of him. Guess who's number 2 in Boise State's record book in terms of all-purpose yards? It was the next 2 years with Jeremy McNichols, because Harsin was just using him. And then we all saw what happened with Alexander Madison, just use.
Yeah.
And I love having that powerful running back, that workhorse running back. And I think that's what Jeanty has. So maybe Andy's philosophy might be different, a little bit different than Brian Harsin, but we don't know that right now. Those 7 middle games that you talked about for Jay Ajayi, he went for 152, 158, 118, 161, 134, 110, and 229. And he also caught 2 touchdown passes receiving in every single one of those 7 games I talked to you about. He had at least 2 touchdowns on the ground. So those 7 games, I think, was the best running back stretch in the history of Boise State football.
No question, man. And I was shocked when I crunched the numbers last night that Jeanty's 8 touchdowns are currently ahead of the pace that Jay had in 2014 after 4 games. In 2014, Jay had 7. Jeanty this year has 8. It's just when Jay picked it up, like Prater was saying, some of those games, Jay Ajayi had a game where he had 5 touchdowns against Utah State to finish with 32 on the season. I don't know if Ashton Jeanty can get 20. This offense is different than the 2014 thing, and I think Jay had more help because he did have the Thomas Spurbecks on the outside and the Chaz Andersons and the SWRs. Prater, those offenses were better. They moved the ball more in the passing game, which I think helped keep some of the pressure, keep one player less out of the box, gave Jay a little bit more room. Right now, I think the MO in defending Boise State is defending Ashton Jeanty, and I think you'll probably feel pretty good about beating this Bronco team if you can somewhat slow that kid down.
Yeah, and let's wait and see if somebody can slow him down. He's obviously off to a good start. He's kind of like Jay, though. One good game, one decent game, one monster game, one so-so game. Jay was very inconsistent except for that 7-game stretch. It's really hard for a running back to be consistent. So far, Ashton's been a little bit inconsistent. And he had a couple of fumbles in that North Dakota game. Jay had a fumbling, he had a couple of fumbling hiccups as well.
He had some issues there.
So there was certainly some comparison there as well. But I think Ashton Jeanty, Boise State is going to need him, back to your point, more than Boise State needed Jay Ajayi then, because the offensive weapons right now are pretty limited.
Yeah, well, let's get to the man who called the plays for Jay Ajayi's magical 2014 season, which ended in a Fiesta Bowl victory. He's Mike Sanford, former quarterback, former OC with Boise State. He'll join us when we come back and share us your thoughts. Do you like the bell cow workhorse back that Brian Harsin seemed to employ, a little more so than the RBBC running back by committee look that it could be on the table this year? How do you like your running backs? And share those thoughts at 208-424-9300. Before we get after this, though, JP put together one of his specials. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Ajayi 2014.
Hedrick looks to him and then throws to the right side to Ajayi. Caught the ball at the 25, and he's going to go the distance, I believe, on the first play scrimmage. We have 2 75-yard score. Screen pass to Jay Ajayi. Hedrick setting up a screen left. Ajayi caught it at the 25, gets to the 30, to the 40, to the 50. It's a race. Let's see if Jay can win it. 30, 20, 10, 5. Third touchdown for Jay Ajayi. Under center, Hedrick hands the ball to Ajayi. Ajayi bounces to the left side. Here's the longest run of the night. 50, 40, 30. Jay on the move. He's going to be tackled around the 10-yard line. They'll hand the ball off to Ajayi up the middle. Cuts back to the right side. Bouncing off tacklers. He's now going back to the left side. 40, 50. It's a foot race. 40, 30. They may have the angle. 20, 10. He's down inside the 10, down around the 5-yard line. Hand off to Ajayi. Ajayi bursts into the clear. 50, 40, 30. He's sniffing the end zone. Jay Ajayi, touchdown. Jay Ajayi comes up with a 62-yard run.
From the Beacon.